Welcome to SanJuanIslandsTV.com and welcome aboard the Washington State Ferry's first international sailing of the year. Commonly referred to as the Anacortes-SAN Ferry, this bridge between borders has been connecting the United States and Canada for more than 50 years. Operating seasonally, spring, summer, and fall, the traditional first sailing of the year is cause for much celebration on both sides of the border. Our day began bright and early in Anacortes as nearly 200 people crowded the ferry terminal, most of them members or guests of the Anacortes Chamber of Commerce. After purchasing our one-way international tickets, we excitedly made our way through the turnstiles and up the walkway to board the JUANS. And what a beautiful spring day it turned out to be, with the snow-capped Olympic Mountains gleaming majestically in the distance. Our first stop was Orcas Island, where more people came aboard for the trip, including Orcas Chamber members and vehicles bound for Canada. The second stop was Friday Harbor on San Juan Island. A contingent of Chamber members, guests, and walk-on passengers boarded along with vehicles. Then we were off. Next stop, Canada. Even though this is called the Anacortes-SAN Ferry, those of us who live in the San Juan Islands and depend on this ferry have an additional perspective.
Well, it is wonderful to be here today with all these people celebrating the opening run of the Sidney San Juan's Anacortes Ferry. And you notice that I'm emphasizing San Juan's because it is very important for people to recognize that this ferry does stop and service Orcas Island, Lopez, Shaw, and San Juan Island.
Many dignitaries were aboard this annual maiden voyage, including State Senator Mary Margaret Haugen and State Representative Judy Cliburn, House Speaker Pro Tem Jeff Morris, Mayor Dean Maxwell of Anacortes, and various San Juan County Council and Friday Harbor Town Council members. Also aboard was Melissa Johnson of Washington State Ferries. Anticipation was building as we approached Sydney, British Columbia. It soon became apparent that a crowd of around 500 Sydney residents had lined the shore to greet us. After a quick photo op, we disembarked the ferry and proceeded through Canadian customs to meet our friends and neighbors to the north. Beyond the warm welcome, it was quite obvious we weren't in Washington, anymore. We were all overwhelmed by our host's generous Canadian hospitality. In addition to coffee, tea, and chocolates, the Parkland School Band warmed up the podium prior to the traditional proclamations by the town criers of Sydney and Anacortes.
Fellow North Americans! We have come together once again.
This was followed by a few official words, including a welcome speech from Sydney Mayor Larry Cross.
I want to thank you all, each and one of you, for coming. It's such a statement of people's support for what really is an important cultural, social, and economic institution, really.
Before we knew it, for the majority of us not staying, it was time to reboard the ferry for the ceremonial return trip. And while tickets from Anacortes to the San Juans are round trip, this international ferry requires one-way tickets that need to be purchased on both sides. Not only is this an important run for Americans to go to Canada, but it's a very important run for the Canadians to come to the U.S. and visit the beautiful San Juan Islands. Another new tradition occurred on the return trip. The Anacortes Chamber threw a potluck lunch in honor of the Canadian contingent that joined us for the trip back to the States.
Well, the ferry is very much an integral part of the Sydney scene. It's iconic. We see it coming in off the water twice a day during the summer. It's part of the landscape. It's expected. It kicks off our tourist season for the visitor centers that our Chamber of Commerce operates. We start when the ferry starts.
Anacortes Chamber Director Mitch Everton elaborated on the economic importance of this ferry to the mainland.
Well, it's tremendously important to Anacortes as a whole. As you know, the linkage with Sydney is a direct linkage. It's important culturally, but very important to us economically. The recently completed EDAS study showed $126 million regionally, which translated into about $30 million with regard to employment and about $4.5 to $6 million in terms of taxes.
In addition to a lovely presentation by the local Native Americans, an informal town hall was conducted by our state senators and representatives, answering questions from the passengers and the media. And to underscore the idea that this is indeed an Anacortes-San Juan Island's Sidney ferry, on the return stop in Friday Harbor, San Juan Island resident and state senator Kevin Ranker boarded the boat as he was returning to work at the state capitol in Olympia. For more information and to make reservations on the international ferry between the United States and Canada, just go to the Washington State Ferry's website and select schedules. As a final touch to a wonderful day, a thoughtful ferry employee gave a couple of kids flags to proudly display as we approached the ferry terminal back in Anacortes. Well, we really enjoyed our day on the Washington State Ferries and the Anacortes-San Juan Island's Sidney Ferry. I'm Lisa Malika. Thank you for watching SanJuanIslandsTV.com, the place to visit.